Very nice day, probably one of our last good ones before winter really kicks in. Now, when Jesus sets such a high standard for those who follow him, and he says things like, "Whosoever of you does not forsake all that he has and come after me cannot be my disciple." Is it worth it? Is it worth it to leave behind everything to pursue God and serve God? After my first missions trip, God had really blown my mind in terms of what he would do and what kind of involvement he actually has in our life when we step out and serve him. And so I had all sorts of ideas and convictions in my mind of what was next, of what I should do. And I wanted to try and exercise those. What was in my mind was that the only thing that seemed to be keeping us from great experiences with the Lord and seeing the Lord do great work in our lives was just stepping out in faith. And so I started to plan another trip overseas. And this time I was going to do it a bit differently. This time I wasn't going to go with groups or organizations. I was just going to leave on my own and see what the Lord would do. And I really wanted to throw myself into it. That passage that says, no man having put his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. And that really hit me to say that, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to step out, I need to be all in. I need to burn my bridges and see what the Lord will do. And so I started selling everything I have, saving money, and looking for a good opportunity to take off, looking for the Lord's leading. And what that wound up being was a missions conference that happened to be in Thailand, one of the places I was already. And it was with a bunch of missionaries. So I decided I would start with that and see if the Lord sets me up with any work to do. And so if people were to ask me, was it worth it? Was it worth it to get rid of everything and just leave things behind and see what God would do? And so I'll fast forward from the time I left to about a little more than a year later. And I was broke, didn't have any money. I was in a bad church situation in Thailand where I was not getting along well with the pastor, and there was a lot of bad stuff going on. And I was sitting down in front of a massage shop one day helping some of the ladies that worked there with English, and one of them had some time to read the Bible. I was using the Bible to teach English, and while she was reading for a few minutes, I could just stop and think about things. And it was an interesting experience to sort of step back from the situation and see myself and how different life was from before I left. Before I left, it was just, a 9-to-5 job and paying bills, going to church. Then life didn't have purpose or meaning. And here I was, just a little more than a year later, and I had a lot of struggles in life. But at the same time, life had incredible purpose. And there was satisfaction in work. And I could see God's hand leading step by step through things. And I was able to directly get involved in people's lives for the Lord. And so, look, following God will definitely have its troubles and trials, but it also has an amazing satisfaction and joy and purpose in life that comes with it. And I always use that term of purpose in life simply because I see that that's something that's missing in a lot of Christian lives. It's not that we don't have some purpose in terms of retirement and taking care of our family, but in terms of our Christian lives, they lack purpose. So is it worth it? Yes, of course, by all means, it's worth it to see God's hand at work in our lives. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I was confused a lot of times. But that's still going through that, and the growth that occurred was much better than to have not faced situations where I might make a mistake, than to have kept myself secure from having an option to make a mistake. And even God's hand is active in that, and God's grace and mercy are active even in those things. And I wouldn't go back.